in a lot of things in medicine, and also he served as the chief minister of the state of West Bengal. And in his name, Dr. B.C. Roy, there are many awards. And Dr. Ashok Mehta, who's also one of our patron and senior BKs who joins all the time, he's also the recipient of that B.C. Roy award. And also, interestingly, it is his birthday, B.C. Roy, but also it was the same day this soul left the body. So he's one of those very rare souls who take the birth on the same day and leave the body also on the same day. So he's one of them. So without much ado, I would now request, I will just continue with the slides, and welcome to all of you once again. We are a bit more people now. These are the ones, the values which we have been doing so on since almost last December. It's 2.5 years now. We soon will be approaching our 75th Platinum Jubilee episode and workshop. And welcome to Sister Anu, who's joining from the West Coast. And also Sister Nalisha is around. She'll be seeing what we are doing in this 1 hour so that she can give her own perspective. And what we are going to do is, as always, the icebreaker. It's a very brief icebreaker, and I would request all of you all to just watch it very closely. And then, as always, give your insights on what you gained from the video. So I'll just play it for you all. Right. So I'm sure you have gained a lot of insight from this very brief video. I found it very amazing. So if you all want to share, so you can write down in the chat box as well. And also welcome to Sister Reena. She's joined as well from Delhi. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So anyone wants to share, you can start writing in the chat box. We have a few more minutes about how the fears were there in this, all the people. And then finally, the fear of being hit again by a car, that fear was probably valid at that point of time in the end. That fear saved him. But you all could see the fears of public speaking. You could also see the fear in the lady when she was stuck in the lift. Many things. You all don't want me to just keep speaking. Okay, Juja is saying, thank you. Thank you so much, Juja, for starting. Fear is God-given. Interesting. Oh my God. Okay, so that's the reason we say, oh my God, is it when we are afraid? Right, so fear is God-given. Okay, Mahima says how fear can hold you back, and if you don't overcome it, it can disable you. Right, true, very true. Anyone else wants to share? Even the person going to the gym, the very hefty guy, also had some fear. Sister Rena is saying, Dar ke aage jeet hai. So I'll translate it. In front of fear, there is always some victory or you're winning. So I think you should win over your fears. That's what she's saying. And yes, today we'll try to explore that in detail, how to win over our fears. Right. So I think we have less audience today because of many reasons. Today is Doctors' Day as well. So some people are busy with some functions. The Canada Day, people are busy there. And I'll take the last sharing. Brother Michael is saying, fear is your shadow, which will bring you to the cemetery. Oh, interesting. Right. The person who had injured and he came to the OT. I think all the doctors or nurses who were nursing him, they were all shown as very black images. They were shown as Yamduts. Yamdut are those messengers of death, probably. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, if you all can just type that, again, it's written in Portuguese. So Janice can just type it what it is written. Fear is very subtle. Yeah, seen in the form of shadows. True, Sister Mahima. Sister Anu is saying, looking into my fears closely will enable me to overcome it. So we have to do a subtle check and close check. Sister Balwinder, our self-created fears we allow to ruin our present. Very true. It won't disappear until we face it and fly it away with our innate power. Right, great. So we have to really face so we need the powers to get rid of fears. Thank you, Sister Janice. So the Portuguese is mentioned, it says that fear stops us. Right, we were seeing that in the video as well. Right, thank you so much. We had quite a few sharings. And with this now I'll proceed to the next activity. I'll request Sister Anu to go ahead. Yeah. And then we'll have Sister Reena in the end. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, Manoj brother. It's really amazing, very beautiful video. True, it gives the insight about the fears that we create and they stay with us. They really stop us from expressing ourselves fully. And same fear can save you, of course. Like fear should be there when like the bus was hitting the person and it could stop him, but not otherwise. So let's see, we'll start our journey to explore through the fear that we have within and how we can become fearless. So the reflection that we'll do is my unrealistic fears. So fears are my own created. So are they realistic? Do they actually, are real? Are they real? And will they happen? We never analyze them. So I think in this exercise, we'll take that moment to reflect and find out some of the fears or phobias that we carry, which are unrealistic in a way that they stop us from expressing ourselves fully, I would say. So that constantly drains your energy. So I'm sure it's a little bit different reflection, but we'll closely look at ourselves and as you can relate to the video, what are the fears that are around you that constantly drain your energy? So take a minute for the reflection and then let's share. Maybe you can discover some, and once we discover, can we overcome or remove them? So take a moment, I'll play some music. So I hope you could find few of those. It could be as simple as the speaking fear or any phobia. Sometimes people have phobia for many things. Like, for example, I have phobia for caterpillar. Just the thought will make me feel it's around me, but they are unrealistic. So let's hear from you if what are or is the unrealistic fear that you discovered that you have in you that drains your energy. Fear drains our energy. But today we are wanting to become fearless. So that's our starting point. I see a few points on the chart. Anybody who'd like to unmute and speak? Share. We haven't heard from Rehana for a long time. Would you like to share?
Okay, so actually, it depends on the consciousness. This fear of death and fear of near and dear ones falling sick, height, and all those things. You know, we fear all those things because of a consciousness, and we think that okay, we are going to lose them. We are going to lose this body. Some people fear okay. Some people fear other people's opinion also. Okay, what is this guy or this person going to think about me if I do this or do that? Okay, that consciousness of log kya sochenge and all those things. Everything boils down to your consciousness. If you're soul conscious, you don't mind, you know, then it doesn't matter.
That's beautiful.
Actually, I had a lot of fears. Yeah, I had a lot of fears when I was not into this Gyan and all. But then once we realize, you know, what we are, and we have nothing to lose, and we didn't bring anything, all those things to this world, right? So what is the point in fearing of losing all this? That's what I think.
Is the strategy to become fearless. So, right, it's the consciousness. But yeah, as many people are putting in the chat, realizing the fears that we have, they are unrealistic, and facing them will make us fearless. But with what consciousness? That requires that shift of consciousness. Thank you, Rena. Dr. Manoj says fear of near and dear ones getting sick or falling ill, right? Fear of heights. Deepak brother says fear of heights, fear of death. Dr. Manoj says fear of death. He's a doctor after all. How can you have that unrealistic fear, brother? Maybe you face it every day as you see the patient. So yeah, we need to really think. Dr. Reena says fear of my own weakness. Mahima says fear of getting into MRI machine. Okay. That maybe Dr. Manoj can bring some realistic understanding, so that it's about understanding that can make us free from our fear, but it's great to know it. So anyone else would like to share? Yes, Vidhi, go ahead.
Yeah, I get scared to travel at night, like when it's a little dark around 8-9 p.m. It's, of course, it's just in my mind, but I get scared if I'm alone.
Yeah, that's like in the video, right? The girl got all covered with the dark hose in the elevator. So, well, darkness. In the day, we are not afraid. In the places where we are afraid, in the darkness. Yeah, good to know. So maybe you can look into how to remove that. Like, we know, when we know it is unrealistic, I think it's easy to. Thank you, Vidhi. Pavan says fear of defame. Yeah, that's very much connected with we call ego, or how we identify ourselves. So fear of defame. I think when we are free to acknowledge who I am, the fear of defame ends. So we have to look at that. Is it realistic? Not everybody will like us. That's not a defame. We allow people to not like us. Marilza says something in Portuguese, I believe, or Spanish. We'll see. Michael says fear of Dharamraj. Dharamraj is the Supreme Justice. Right. So I think if we are aware of our actions, fear of Dharamraj will also end if we do righteous actions. So Portuguese, Marilza says facing people at events and parties. Right. We all have that, such a common fear. I think growing up as teenager, sometimes, yeah, we have that fear. So we have to look at it, why we are afraid. So unrealistic. That's why this reflection session is, this exercise is that, is it realistic or unrealistic? We have to look at that. And again, Lara says, fear of getting stuck in the elevator, height, cockroach, rat, snake. There's so many, so many, Lara. So write it down and find how to get rid of the change of consciousness and overcoming. Balvinder says, fear of stigma of BK world, what people will say, my family's opposition, my society, if I follow this path. This fear prevented me from enjoying an ocean of heaven, in which she always appreciates that we all enjoy it. But I know this fact, I do not care about anyone, not even my family, because this path is perfectly for entire humankind. Those were my unrealistic fears. Right. About you're following the system of the society, or what your heart says, what is right or wrong. Beautiful sharing. Thank you, Balvinder. Any last sharing anyone would like to share? Their fears, but you are becoming aware today, so that this exercise will lead us to get rid of today by end of the session. And as we always do, we are planning on to move on to the next exercises that will help us. So I'll read just the last one. Pavan says, गाय का बछड़ा 1000 गायों में से अपनी माँ को पहचान लेता है, उसी प्रकार हमारे अज्ञानता में किए कर्म हमारा पीछा भी नहीं छोड़ते हैं. Well, like what is that? A separated cow child, sorry, recognizes its mother, even in the big crowd like that. Whatever actions we do, if we do a wrong action, it recognizes us. It never let go of our back, like it comes back. The consequence of our action comes back. I think that's an important one. We have to be aware. Vijay brother says, Dharamraj is supreme justice, I said, not supreme soul. If I have said supreme soul, that was a mistake. So yes, Vijay brother, thank you for correcting that. Supreme justice in English, Dharamraj. Anyways, maybe we'll move on to the next one, how to get rid of our fears. So for that, Deepak brother, if you have written up, let's look. Just we'll see the fears quickly. So we all know our weaknesses, our fears that are unrealistic or realistic. That's what we have to reflect and get rid of. So near and dear ones getting sick, our own weaknesses, fear of death, fear of defame or ignorant actions, traveling at night alone, MRI machine, getting into MRI machine, fear of Dharamraj, Supreme Justice, facing people in the parties, fear of stigma, of following a path or any belief. So all these are our unrealistic fears. Thank you everyone for sharing. so openly. And now let's move on to the meditation to strengthen our fearlessness. So over to Manoj.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. And thank you for coming out with your fears. So let's go on into the action planning mode. And before that, let us try to empower ourselves by trying to change our consciousness, as has already been pointed out by Sister Reina. So we'll just try to practice this, because consciousness is just not one thought away. I mean, obviously it's one thought away right now for us, but we need to keep practicing it. So let's sit back, relax, take a deep breath in and out, as we always do when we are confronted by any fear or phobia. We always try to take a deep breath first in and out. And as we do so, I remind myself that I, the eternal being of light, the energy, the eternal, indestructible energy that I am the driver of this body. And my most important faculty is my mind. And having realized the eternity of my existence, which means I don't die, I just leave this body, in which I am there temporarily for a while, to carry on performing my part in the world round. And very soon, after having completed my karmic accounts in this body, I have to pretty soon leave this body as well. So I just enter the body, play my part, and exit from the body. And if I can simulate this to changing my daily clothes, how simple and easy it is. Second step is realizing my eternal nature. I connect myself to the Supreme Being, who is also an energy, but who is supreme in its existence, full of virtues and powers, the ocean of everything. And the moment I connect with that being, I feel so empowered, feel so light as well at the same time. Mind become empowered, and all these fears fade as dewdrops fade in sunshine. So with this empowering reflection and meditation, let me strengthen my mind, which can face all the fears and phobias which are unrealistic in the true sense. And let me prepare myself for the coming days ahead to lead a life absolutely stress-free and fearless. So with this, I'll just stop sharing the screen. And I hope, so sister, do you want me to share the screen or you're ready to share, sister? Yeah, okay, thanks. So we'll move on to the next activity. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai, and beautiful good evening and Om Shanti to everyone. And now that we have all learned the fear within me, we all have tried to go deep down and learn about the realistic as well as the unrealistic fears which are there within me. And with this meditation, we have prepared ourselves. We have prepared ourselves to be fearless. And now we all are powerful to do some action planning. So we have to do a reflection now. We have to jot down our new fearless ways of thinking, maybe in the form of some actions or some plan or some words, which I will be practicing in the coming week. So we all will be self-reflecting in the next few minutes, and we will be creating some ready-to-use solutions, some ready-to-use sentences or thoughts or words, which will make me fearless and which I'm going to practice in the next few weeks. So let's start this reflection. And Manoj Bhai, can you play this relaxation music, or I can do as well? Yeah, thank you.
I'll try to. Thanks.
So take a few
should I just
moments.
share? I'll just share the screen myself only then,
Okay.
because I have to share it. Okay. Yes.
So we'll do the reflection now, and we will write down these ready to use, very feasible, our action plan, our take home message, which we will be practicing in the coming week. So they should be so crisp and clear that it is going to give me clarity to be fearless. So take your time. So if we have thought about some action plan, we can start sharing in the chat box. And I request any one of you to please unmute and share your sharing by words as well. So let's see who have not shared till now. Sister Nalisha, Anil Bhai, anyone? Sister Jaswinder, Pawan, Sister Hansa. So any one of you can unmute yourself and share. And Manoj Bhai says, reminding myself constantly of various affirmations. And we can be specific about the affirmation as well. That's so nice. It's a beautiful way, a beautiful action plan to be fearless. And as we have few minutes, we can even create that affirmation specifically to be fearless. Okay, Vijay Bhai says, please recheck. Okay, it was about the previous question. Okay, and the next one is about points of self-respect. So points of self-respect, Manoj Bhai, can you elaborate how it is going to make me fearless?
Oh my God, it comes to me. The facilitators are speaking, the participants are not
You,
speaking. Okay.
but you shared a very important point.
Yes, okay. So I'll just share, no problem. It's no difference between a participant and facilitator, but Okay, yeah, since you're asking me, so I think what we are taught here in Brahma Kumaris, which I really have practiced, I must say from experience, we say Swaman. Swa is self and man is respect. So I need to really respect myself. Who am I really? If I am the child of the Supreme, if I'm a child of the Supreme God, the Supreme Being, how can I be really so low and become fearful of every small thing in the life? And at the drop of a hat, or like any Tom, Dick, and Harry coming and doing something, and I just get very fearless. So I just need to put a point of self-respect that I feel that most important is I am the child of the Supreme Being. And I can also say that he is the Almighty Authority. So I am the Master Almighty Authority. So I think this is what I have been practicing as well. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. So, Soman, and I think self-respect and self-esteem. Self-esteem is maybe a little bit higher level of self-respect, which Pavan is asking. And yes, Swaman and affirmations is one of the wonderful way of becoming fearless. So Anuban is saying shifting to gratitude for the divine and being happy and content within me. That's right. And Michael Bhai is also sharing, Michael Bhai, with God on my side, I conquer everything which comes on my way. That is a beautiful line, and this shoots up the self-esteem. That with God on my side, I can conquer anything, and this makes me fearless.
Yeah.
And Deepak Bhai say, remembering that God is watching over me. So this is nothing to fear. That's so sweet. That's so sweet.
So I think
So
Rishpal Bhai wants to share, yeah, and with his
yes,
sister
brother,
also. Yeah, thanks.
please. Yes.
Yeah. See, if you strengthen your mind, you will be fearless. So say to God, God, oh my Lord, pour worldly gifts at the feet of the foolish man, but on my head pour only the sweet waters of humility. Give me the power of the untroubled mind. And to get the untroubled mind, you know this life is a drama. And if this life is a drama, you surrender to Him. And in the soul consciousness, and during Amrit Vela, to begin with, if you connect with the Supreme, you get elevated powers from Him and you become fearless. This is my experience. Thank you. God bless you.
That's wonderful, Brijpal Bhai. That's wonderful. That's right. And we have some more sharings that God is watching over me. That is really nice. And the greatest test of courage is to have victory on ourselves. So be courageous and to be victorious. Okay, that's great. And there is one more sharing in some other language, which I can't decode. And someone else who would like to share can unmute and share your action plan, ready to use action plan, and it can benefit each one of us when we know that. Hansa Ben, Sushila Ben, Kiran, there's so many who have not shared. We would like to hear from you. Anil,
I think
Mahima,
people are
Meena.
fearful of sharing.
They have shared before, isn't it? Vidhi, you would like to say anything? Vidhi has shared before, I know, but still.
Almost just somebody already covered it, so it's similar.
Okay, right,
Yeah.
right.
Aurea, Sister Aurea, you want to share? You've shown your video, so we expect you to share.
Okay, Deepak
I'm-
Bhai, you can, yeah. There's one more sharing, but it's a different language. Lara has shared. I can't read that.
So Aurea is speaking. Sorry, Rina, when she's
Okay.
speaking. Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
please.
Yeah.
Please.
I don't speak very well English and Portuguese. I don't speak very well English, but the experience to be with the Brahma Kumaris from 3 years ago, since 3 years, okay, I can feel more complete with more love and peace, and I find with the Brahma Kumaris a new family, my really family, the 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 real play to stay with me, with the Baba, and give my love to everyone. and change my life and change my life in the world.
That's so
It's not
beautiful,
easy.
Aurea. That's great. Yeah, the sense of togetherness of the family makes us fearless. It makes us
Yes,
prepare for anything. That's right. The
yes.
sense of belongingness of the family. That's great.
Anytime. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great. And there's a wonderful sharing by Lara, taking a courageous step in facing fear in the company of God. Okay. To be courageous with the company of God. That is a wonderful action plan. That I'm a courageous person. I'm a courageous being. So, anyone else? So, Deepak Bhai, can
Shall I,
you?
Reena?
Yeah,
And
please. Yes, Reena.
Okay, so one thing that comes to my mind, once in a while is we don't know the fear of unknown. Okay, so what is going to happen in the future? The Baba has only told us in general these things will happen, but we don't know specific what is going to happen to what and all those things. So I really don't have any action plan to conquer that particular. I can't call it fear, but I can say curiosity. How do we deal with whatever is going to happen to me or someone who is very near and dear to me? Okay, so that is one thing, but I don't have any action. That's one thing I left open-ended if someone can answer that.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. So one more sharing by Pavan Bhai is Karavan Har Baba Kara Raha Hai, Main Sirf Nimit Hu. Means I am a trustee. I'm a trusty soul. I'm a trusty child of Baba and I'm just doing what he's directing me. And that also makes me fearless. That's great. So anyone else? I think we are up to the time. We have to wind up this exercise. And
so
Deepak
sorry,
Bhai, can
Vijay
you?
Bhai is, yeah, sorry, I'm to interrupt. Vijay Bhai is waving. So you can just quickly
Yeah.
share Vijay Bhai and then we can wind up, Yarina. Sorry.
Yes, Vijay Bhai.
Vijay Bhai, there's some problem with your audio. You are speaking, we can't hear you. You're already unmuted actually, but we can't hear you what you're saying. Am I right?
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
hear
he's
you.
unmuted. We can't hear him.
We can just see your video, you're waving. So maybe you have to type it because we can't hear you. Sorry. So just go ahead with
Okay.
the sharing.
Yeah, Deepak Bhai, you can share the screen with your you had shared all the responses. Okay. So these are the beautiful action planning we got from everyone. And reminding myself constantly of various affirmations, that is the Swaman, and remembering that God is watching over me, so there's nothing to fear. With God on my side, I'll conquer everything which comes on my way. That's beautiful. And shifting to gratitude, being a grateful soul and being a contented soul, and strengthening our mind to be fearless from Vijay Pal Bhai. And the courageous, this action planning of courageous came from two or more, that I am a courageous being, and this family of belongingness from Aura, that this Aurea, I'm sorry, this sense of belongingness of this whole family makes me ready to be fearless, being courageous again, and dealing with my unknown fears. That was open ended, and with some more reflection and churning, we can find an answer to that. And the last one is that I am a trusty soul, so I have nothing to worry, I have nothing to fear. So these are the wonderful sharing, and these are the wonderful action planning we got all of us together as a family, which is really ready to use. So we shall wind up this exercise now. Thank you so much. And we can go ahead further. Manoj Bhai, you are taking over.
Yeah, thank you. And also Pavan Bhai is sharing that I am an immortal soul. Yeah.
Immortal soul.
So that really helps in really, this thought of being immortal, that my existence is being, I'm eternal, also really takes away all the fear. Okay, so I don't know, I'm stuck with sharing screen again. I'll just do it. In the meantime, if I can request the ones who have joined new, if you want to be a part of the series and the workshops in future, please send your or share your email addresses and WhatsApp numbers, uh, either to everyone if you're comfortable, or to Sister Vidhi and Sister Anu, Vidhi and Anu, if you can do that. Right. So as always, in the next 15 minutes, what we'll be doing is we'll be taking what last time our senior speakers, Nirmala Didi and with her sister Suman, what they had to share about. fearlessness. So I'll just share the screen. Here it is. So quickly, I think the discussion was very fruitful coming from the Shaktis. You know, what we call Shaktis at Brahma Kumaris is not about really the female gender. Obviously, it connotes to the invoking the divine, what we call the deities, that Lakshmi, the Durga and Kali, all those Shaktis are also no doubt very symbolic in India. But Shakti is basically the Shakti, this power of the soul. You have to invoke the divine power inside the soul, what the soul has, to help get rid of that. So we are very fortunate. We have one more Shakti with us today, live. Sister Nalisha will be joining, and she's already joined rather, and she'll be rendering her thoughts. So I think what Sister Suman was doing, Sister Nirmala Didi was actually quite tired with many other commitments. So I think what she shared, Suman Behan, was asking more of questions and giving answers as well. So I like this FEAR, fear, what she mentioned as an acronym, that false expectations appearing real, or we can also say false events appearing real. So, I mean, you can see what exercises we covered to start with is why the name was unrealistic, because they are really not real. Like, if I can share my example as well, I always have this fear of death was just to provoke you all to write something. But the first one was, sometimes I really feel that, oh, if my parents are ailing and aging, they can fall sick, and then I'm the person who's taking care of them. So I have this fear. But again, I think I'm trying to invoke that if I'm constantly thinking of such negative things. So best is not to invoke, because here comes the law of attraction, which I think we'll take in the next slide. And I think all of this is very universal, the fear of death. Many people, as Sister Rehna said, fear of unknown. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, particularly with the war scene going around, a lot of corruption going around, with the climate change also going around. Like nowadays in India, we have the monsoons going on concurrently, like a flood-like scene will soon erupt. So that's the fear of what is going to happen in future. And again, very important to realize what Sister Suman said, and I think even Nirmala Didi shared here, that the last thought at the time of death is very important. What is the thought when I'm leaving the body? Because that is carried forward to my next birth. So it's important to be totally fearless at that point of time. And here I was mentioning that this is law of attraction. If I know that that thing is not going to happen, I should not be invoking it, because if I invoke that thought, it will definitely tend to happen. So by thinking of an accident, it may tend to happen. So let me just not do that. And this is fear of many, many things in future. Students have fear of passing in the exams, whether or not they'll fail. People have the fear of crossing the road because the vehicle can just come and take over, particularly in India. So Didi said here that if I haven't surrendered to God, these fears will remain with me. So I need to really surrender myself to him and be in the constant remembrance. Fear of the unknown, we have been taking that. And Suman Behan asked here that Nirmala Didi was one of the first instruments. She was a doctor by profession, and she was having a roaring practice. She practiced for a few years, but then she was guided by our senior, Brahma Baba, who was the main instrument, the head of the organization, and our founder father. So he sort of through the other medium of Dadi Gulzar had asked that you go and serve, because she used to speak good English. So that question Suman Behan asked her, that did you really feel afraid, Didi, when you went leaving this country and going abroad? Again, you're being alone in the plane, being alone in a country where you don't know what's going to happen. So she said no, because I know that Supreme is sending me for some purpose. She had full faith in the divine, in God, and also full faith in herself. And these two things gave her a lot of courage. Then Sister Suman asked about nowadays diet. Like many people are very worried about what they are eating. So it's good to be cautious about what you're eating, but Didi said don't be overcautious, because people nowadays have stopped really eating the normal healthy stuff as well, which is supposed to be healthy. Let me not go there, because it may really emerge a lot of controversy. Someone said about fear of being defamed and being criticized. So fear of defamation is a common thing, and that's the reason people don't take responsibility. That's because they feel, oh, if I do this, I may be criticized. And also being in a leadership role gives a lot of stress. So people really want to be away from that. So Didi said that it's important nowadays for juniors also to come in the forefront and take responsibility. And I think all of us are in the learning phase. We have our own learning curves. So we need to respect that, and everything, every point of time, we need to really learn from whatever negative also happens. So we don't need to really fear of being criticized by people. I think Sister Rena also shared that in the session today. The next fear was fear of being left out. So Didi said, please don't waste your time and energy thinking about this because you're not alone. So the only way to deal with this is spirituality. Instead, if you feel that your peer group, there's a lot of peer pressure for you to be with them and you want to be a part of theirs, don't really think so much. Try to spend your time in a worthwhile way because you know your time is precious. That's important to realize. Fear of bad karma, which is in the past, we really can't do anything for that. And here comes what we call realization, Mehsusta ki Shakti in Hindi. That is the first step for transformation. If I really want to transform, I need to realize my mistake, what I have done. And then obviously don't be in the guilt mode all the time, because that guilt mode will not allow me to heal myself and go further. Fear of being alone, Suman Ben asked, Didi said, please make some friends. And as I remember Oria's sister said, she's found a new family now, family friends, spiritual family friends. Try to be in the gathering of those people who can actually help you elevate your morale and make you feel more empowered spiritually rather than with people who really can drain your energy. I think each one has to decide which company they like. And also at Brahma Kumaris, we say that we have to take care of the company we are in. Jaisa sang vaisa rang in Hindi, because the color of the company, it colors my consciousness. And then I can also start having those fears, which may not be actually very realistic, which I wouldn't have had previously. I'll take a few questions which we asked Didi. So again, Suman Didi asked her that any experience from Australia. Actually, I had put this question. There's a saying that don't be afraid to fail, but be afraid of not to try. So Didi's experience again of Australia was, she was all alone, but she was accommodated by the Indian families there. And she really, like Dadi Janki did in the UK, London, she used to cook food for them as well. And which is a very good way of making people feel comfortable and helping them with your energy in the food and also cooking in the divine's remembrance. So it's a good way to bond with people by cooking for them. And Didi said she never had fear of being alone. She's truly very fearless now, even at this age, because she said she was on godly service. If you remember, courage and faith were the two values which she had when she left India. And as we speak, she still currently is the regional coordinator and director of the Asia Pacific region. Next question to Didi was how to take care of not repeating the mistakes of the past. It's simply by paying attention. We just have to make sure. It reminds me here of our first administrative head, whom used to lovingly call Mama. Her name was Jagdamba Saraswati, and she used to say, mistake means it will only happen once. It can't happen twice. If it is happening the second time, it's not a mistake. It's a purposeful act. And then you obviously have to keep repenting for that if you repeat the mistake. So there you are about what our first administrative head had to say. Right, so I'm much before time, and I must say, I must give all the time now to Sister Nalishha, who's joined us. And before I go on to her, I'll just stop sharing the screen. I'll introduce Sister Nalishha for all of you. If you can just spotlight her as well, Sister Anu. Yeah, and she is with us for the first time, but many people know her because I think they all had the USA teachers meeting and all of you know her very well that way. But on our series, she's the first time. And let me tell you a few things about her. She's very humble. She hasn't shared a lot about her achievements, and whatever little bit I have, I'll share that with her. So she's still currently working very much as in the Lokik world for a non-profit organization based in Washington, DC. As a labor rights activist since 2002, almost 21 years now. and she strongly advocates for the rights of workers all around the world. In addition, looking at her alaukic spiritual life, she's into this journey of Raj Yoga meditation for the past 36 years. It's a pretty long time. And what she appreciates about this practice is it has given her a good guiding tool for decision making, for dealing with stress, combating burnout, and maintaining a positive perspective despite everyday challenges which life presents. And also she is a BA, Bachelor of Arts, and a MA, Master of Arts degree in International Affairs. And as always, we have a poem for our speaker, a slightly lengthy poem. Please bear with me, all of y'all. Sister Nalisha, who's been working for the rights of the labor, helping them liberate from the pain, suffering, and stupor, teaching them the skills of meditation off the paper, and helping them to realize their stress, helping them to release their stress like dew of water vapor. She says life has a meaning apart from this physical existence, which is much more deeper. But people are so stuck in relationships like a hanging creeper. So sister shall guide us today on how to ignite the inner light as a dipper, so that we rejuvenate our existence from raw, becoming more riper. We can then sing the songs of life harmoniously like a rapper, watching our weaknesses though very closely, like being a gatekeeper, and wearing the mighty spiritual footwear, which is indeed very cheaper, doesn't need a lot of dollars, and making me realize that I need to sweep my defects like a skilled sweeper. So with this, I would thank you so much for joining, and also for being there for the first hour, the entire first hour, and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Wow, I've never had a introduction through a poem. It was beautiful. I'm very touched. Thank you, Manoj Bhai. So I feel like you now know my introduction, but just to start with, if you need a 10-second stretch break, because I know we've been sitting for 1 hour. So maybe you want to just reposition yourself a little bit, get yourself a little bit of movement, because I know when we sit for a lengthy period of time, and for a lengthy period could mean more than 10 minutes, you don't know. The body gets a little tired, the mind might get a little tired. So let's just take big, deep breath in and exhale. Maybe move the feet a little bit, the hands, the shoulders. Take another deep breath in and exhale. Just let ourselves get a little quieter. Remind ourselves to stay in the present moment. Okay. So I would like to start by sharing a few real stories. One is maybe one that many of you can relate to. So during the height of the pandemic for COVID, or even actually at the very beginning. So yes, I work in Washington, DC. I belong to, in terms of seva, my spiritual sustenance, I grew up in New York under Mohini Didi, and my Lokik family, my physical parents, are in a neighboring state called Connecticut. And it's where most of my spiritual service takes place, between Connecticut and New York. And at the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020, my office, my work closed, meaning we were not allowed to go to the office, but we had to continue working. And when we had left the office, the thought was, I'll see you in 2 weeks, because everyone thought that COVID would be short term, it will pass quickly, and then we will continue with our lives. 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks. 4 weeks turned into 8 weeks. 8 weeks turned into 12 weeks. And it continued. And in Washington, D.C., we were in a bit of a lockdown. So we couldn't go to the grocery store too often. They were closing the public parks. Everything was closing. But because it's a city, there's still people walking outside on the streets. And so first thought is, can I go outside? But what if I run into people? How do I distance myself, but still be able to go outside? And so the fear was making those decisions in that moment. And I still remember it would be a thought that just was like a cloud hanging over me. Because like in the first hour, the discussion was on the unknown. And, you know, I live on my own, in my own apartment. And so my human interaction was very limited. And I was thinking, well, maybe I will go to my parents' home. But then the fear was, well, how do I know if I've been exposed or not? I don't want to bring anything to them. And testing was not an option in the very beginning. You know, it was not common. It was not easily accessible. And so the fear that maybe, what if I have it? I have COVID. I don't want to bring it to my mother and father. So I stayed by myself for several months. And I remember each evening, my family would get together on Zoom. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister-in-law, who, by the way, are both doctors. So happy Doctors' Day. And then their children. And then occasionally other family members would join. And I remember we would have a beautiful time together. We would share what was happening in our day. We would do some meditation. But then whenever the conversation got to COVID, I noticed that there was a switch in my thinking, because my mother and father would say, oh, I went to the grocery store. Oh, we did this. Or we stayed home, but someone came by. And my thoughts started to get angry. It was like a light switch had went from on to off, lightness to darkness. And I got very angry. Why are you allowing someone to come to the home? Why are you going to the grocery store? And what I realized was that anger was rooted in fear. But in the moment, I was just like, I want to control every moment, and I don't have that control. And my biggest fear was, what if something happens to my mother and father and I'm not there? In that moment, it was just anger. And I'm not by nature an angry person. Something shifted. It wasn't until later that I realized it's because I have fear. Fear that I can't protect them. Fear I cannot protect those close to me. There was nothing they could do to change that fear. They were following everything that we had said in terms of guidance. They were being cautious, but that fear continued to be kind of like that cloud that just follows you, that dark cloud where your mood, your emotions, everything gets affected. And it took me a while to realize it wasn't me being angry at them. It was me not having control over that moment. And the fear was so deep that it was expressed in the form of anger. Fortunately, my mother and father are very patient and did not get upset, didn't get negative towards me. They just listened and said, "We hear you," because they knew it was my fear. But they also knew it was something that I had to work through. And so after some reflection time, and I had to keep asking myself, what is really happening? What am I truly feeling in this moment? And my immediate response was anger. And I said, no. And I asked myself again, what am I truly feeling? And I reflected, I wrote about it. It took multiple times me asking, what am I truly feeling? And the truth was, my truth was, I was feeling powerless. That's where the fear was coming from. I felt powerless. Once I could acknowledge where that feeling of powerlessness was coming from, then I could start working towards finding some peace with that. I had to remind myself in that moment, well, what is it in this moment I have control over? What is it I don't have control over? I didn't have control over how COVID was going to result and how it was going to impact us for several years, and it continues to. I couldn't lock my mother and father in their home. Even if I was physically with them, it's not respectful nor practical. I had to find a way to regain my sense of power. Yes, there's a physical level of regaining that power. When it comes to COVID, wearing a mask, washing hands, keeping safe distance. But what I needed was not physical power. I needed to develop in that moment inner power. I needed to regain inner power because it was already there. It was just buried. It was covered by fear, by anger, by a sense of powerlessness. And so I've had to go through my own internal spiritual process of regaining that sense of power. And so I'll share more about that throughout our time together. Another story. By the way, feel free to use the chat box. I will make sure I leave time at the end for questions or comments, but please feel free to use the chat box right now. So Manoj Bhai talked about how I'm a labor activist. So 20 years ago, I came into this role through my work, where I try to help workers advocate for their rights, better pay, safe working conditions, dignity, respect on the job. In particular, I work with a lot of women and youth. And in a lot of countries, public demonstrations are not considered legal. In a lot of countries, speaking out against the government or against your employer is frowned upon and can cause harm. These are the individuals that I am working with and advocating for, so that they have the freedom to associate, the freedom of speech, the freedom to live with self-respect and dignity. Many years ago, I was in a country where the government is very, even though they call themselves a democratic country, the government has a lot of control. Control over the election system, control over how businesses are run, control on public demonstrations and protests. And when I was there to meet with workers who are struggling, workers who are trying to form associations or what we call labor unions, so that they could collectively advocate for safe working conditions. They were working in factories, in farms, and injuries were high percentage. Abuse and violence was increasing. And so I was there to just meet with the workers. And what was happening is many of these workers who were meeting with, with my organization were getting arrested or harassed by the police and the government. And I remember one day I was asking some of the leadership, I said, knowing that you could possibly be arrested, or even worse, maybe even harmed physically for your activities, why do you continue to do it? Aren't you scared? Do you have fear? And they said, the reality is fear exists, and every day I have fear. I don't know if I'm going to go make it home tonight. I don't know if my family or someone I know is going to be harmed. But if I live my day in fear, change will not happen. If I don't be that change, if I don't lead through my own actions, how can I ask someone else to do the same? Fear is a reality, he said to me. It's my reality. He was like, it's my wife's reality. He said, but I'm fighting for something that's bigger than me. I need to be part of this change. So my sense of determination, my sense of solidarity for my brothers and sisters, my sense of hope and courage outweighs the fear that still exists. That conversation I had with this leader over 15 years ago, and I still hold it. Fear was part of his reality every day, but he said, I'm not going to let it lead me. I'm not going to allow it to be how I make my decisions. He also reminded me, I'm not going to be reckless, meaning I'm not going to take a risk that I know will result in something, absolutely in something harmful. But I have to remind myself that hope and courage and dignity and self-respect are more powerful than any fear that exists. And so every day he would remind himself that positive change can happen, but I need to be part of it. You know, what he was seeking was, yes, an external change, a change that was more on a physical level. But the messaging behind it reminded me of what really is at the foundation of who we are. Fear is part of our day for many of us. The more we watch the news, the more there could be fear because the thoughts start getting influenced. I'm not going to say don't watch the news. I watch the news every day, just so I have an awareness of when I step foot outside my door, what am I facing? What is it that is going to happen? What is the sense of what's happening in the world today? Mostly so I know how to give compassion to the world. So I know what thoughts to give to the world. But also with my job, I have to know what's happening in the world. You know, I don't want to make this session so much about my job, but just this week, I found out that some of the union leaders we had been working with in Bangladesh and Honduras were murdered because of their activities. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but it did happen. Their activities of really speaking out, trying to fight and advocate for others. And I was reading kind of the conversations that some of my colleagues had had with their families. And their families said they knew what the possibilities were, but they were not going to allow themselves to stop advocating for what they believed was right. Their sense of honor, strength, courage is what I'm going to remember about them. We knew this could happen, but we knew their positive impact would be outweighing what possibly could happen to them. And so, yeah, they have experienced now severe tragedy. Tragedy, I think many of us fear could happen to those we are close to. But they are not allowing it to stop them. They're saying they led by a sense of dignity and wanting others to experience dignity. I can only be proud of what they did. And as much as the sorrow and sadness is there, they have strength in knowing that courage that they lived by. You know, when we talk about fear, it's often because of what, yes, is unknown, but it's also because I focus so much on what I don't have control over. What if I focused on what I do have control over? And what is the one thing, the root of everything I have control over? What is it? Anyone have any ideas on this? What is the root of what I have complete control over? My mind, my thoughts. Yeah. The thoughts leads to the self. And so I need to remind myself that in moments where the fear is starting to take over, let me pause and ask myself, in this moment, what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? Like imagine, if you're driving, you know where your starting point is, and you know where your destination is. You come to what we call in the US, a fork in the road, meaning you have two roads that you have to choose one of the two to take. So imagine each of these roads will lead you to your destination. One has a lot of holes in it. Maybe there's some construction traffic. It's bumpy. And the other one, it's a new road. Not a lot of cars, smooth. Which route would you take? Which road would you choose? We choose the smooth road, the new road. But what happens is when we start to experience fear or any wasteful thinking, what happens is it's as if we're choosing that bumpy road, the one that could have delays, the ones that will pull us back. And so what happens is when I find myself starting to experience negative thoughts, and the thoughts may not even be seen as fear. Like when I gave you the example in the beginning of this whole situation with my mother and father and COVID, it came out in the form of anger. I didn't realize it was fear in that moment. I had to have a conversation with myself and really dig deep and realize it was fear. And then I had to ask myself, what is it I have control over? And what is it I don't have control over? But also, I have to remind myself, well, where is it that I really want to be in my thinking? What do I want to lead me in my thinking? Very often, we don't recognize it because we're too caught up in it. We're in that moment, and that external world is just closing in on us. It was like that icebreaker video at the beginning. One thought grows into two thoughts, and it just grows and grows until it suffocates us. At what point can I stop that feeling of suffocation by negative or wasteful thinking? I need to identify it at the very first thought. Because that thought I'm not attentive to it, will continue to grow and grow and grow. And so, but it's not just about stopping the thought. Because think about it. If you were to dig a hole outside and just leave that hole, what happens? It starts to collect rubbish. Whatever is out in the elements, in nature, it just starts to fill it. Maybe some weeds will grow. Maybe some kind of garbage that somebody threw outside. But what if I were to dig that hole, plant a seed, give it water, make sure it gets adequate sunlight, maybe give it some fertilizer. I'm giving it love. I'm giving it attention. It can grow into something beautiful. So when I start to see myself moving towards a negative thought, I need to stop in that moment. And I need to shift. And I need to move myself towards a positive, empowering, powerful thought. The problem is we've created habits. And I'm sure that in previous sessions, the word sanskara has come up. We've created habits or sanskars in the way we think. You know, I have a neighbor. She's very lovely, very polite. Whenever I see her, she's very, holds the door open if you're coming behind her. And before COVID, we used to take the public bus, and we both were on the same route every day to go to work. We worked in separate places, but our routes were the same. And every day we'd wait at the bus together. And every day she would say to me, the bus is going to be late. And then she'd say, oh, the bus is going to be late. I'm going to be late for my meeting, because she was fearful, worried she would be late. And I said, the bus will be on time. And she just kept saying, no, it's going to be late. I'm going to be late for my meeting. I'm going to get in trouble with my boss. And she would say that every day. And then the bus came on time. We would get, and right before getting on the bus, and she likes to sit in a very specific section of the bus, she'll say, oh, the bus is going to be crowded. I won't be able to sit in the seat that I like. I said, don't worry, you will get a seat. And there was a seat for her. We're on the bus. She's in the seat that she wants. And then she says, we're going to be late. There'll be traffic. And I said, don't worry. You will get to work on time. This conversation we would have every day. And we would be on time. And then she said, oh, I'm going to be on time for my meeting. I'm not prepared. Her fear was actually about a presentation she had to do. But she found fault and was exhibiting impatience and negativity in every step of the way. And we were having this conversation fairly regularly. And so for a long time, I would have the same conversation. Don't worry, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. And what was happening is, in the beginning, I was like, let me give her encouragement. Let me try to help her. And nothing was changing because she had chosen to stay in this negative way of thinking. It was a choice she was making. And no matter what, I was not going to be able to change that way of thinking. So I had some options. Because what was happening was, when I started to see her, I was starting to get negative in my mind. Oh, here we go again. She's not going to change in her thinking. She's going to complain. And she's taking a lot of my energy. So when I started to see that I wasn't able to change her, but she was starting to change me because of her fear, this was all rooted in her fear, it was starting to make me negative. And then every time I saw her, I would create negative thoughts. And I said, I have to change something. And it's not her. It's me. So I said, I can just be on the same bus and just kind of smile and just have good, what we say in the Brahma Kumaris, good wishes. You know, pure and elevated thoughts towards her, compassion. But there were moments that I myself might have been going through something, and I said, it's a lot of effort. And yeah, I can do that. And I did do that at times. But what I also decided to do was, it's like taking that bumpy road or choosing that smooth road. I was like, I'm going to choose the smooth road. So what did I do? I took an earlier bus. And because I realized that I needed to do some work on myself. I needed to check my own thinking. And also not allow what was her fear to then influence me to become negative. And even though I wasn't experiencing fear, I was experiencing negativity from her fear. And it was starting to influence me, and it was affecting my day. Because I wanted to change my habits in my thinking about her. I also had to accept that I cannot change somebody else. The only one I can change, me. Starting here. And so these examples that I'm sharing with you are all real. I didn't even embellish any of them. These were the realities of how we get affected, how fear can take many forms and influence us. And so it's really about saying, okay, what do I do? How do I switch? How do I shift? The first thing is, I have to accept that I need to shift in my thinking. And I need to stop blaming others. That example of COVID with my mother and father, it wasn't because of their actions. They were taking very responsible actions and steps to be safe. But I was blaming them. You're not listening to me. You're taking it too lightly. No. I had to accept that it was my fear that was leading me It was leading to the way I spoke to them. And they are the ones you could say I love the most, right? Besides God, of course. But it was not love that was coming out. And so I had to accept that I needed to change. But what I also had to do was recognize that I needed to give myself some more love and compassion. It's okay to say, I'm not okay in this moment. I need a little support. Whether it be from someone that you're close with, but what I needed was, in that moment, what I call spiritual support. You know, that spiritual support really is critical for change to take place and to be sustained. That spiritual process is so critical to bring change that's functional. I don't want to make change that's temporary or on the surface. Change that will remain. And so when we talk about fear, it's not because I want something bad to happen. It's because I haven't focused enough on what positive things could happen. Nobody likes uncertainty. It's uncomfortable. It's like driving without a map or knowing where I'm going. I find myself feeling very uncomfortable when I don't know the route that I'm taking. But I've had to accept that maybe I don't know the full route, but I do know that next step that I will take. Because that next step is going to be based on my thoughts. In the Brahma Kumaris, we say our thoughts lead to our words, which then lead to our actions and interactions. The thoughts are like a seed. How I nurture that seed will determine how it grows. A spiritual process helps to nurture the self from the inside out. I can do many things for the body. Eat healthy food, exercise, get plenty of rest. But what am I doing for that inner spirit? We call it the soul. What am I doing to nurture the self? I can be confident in saying all of us have at least one mobile phone, right? If you don't recharge it, that mobile phone will not work. By the end of the day, the battery goes and goes, and then it shuts off. So what do? I charge it. Imagine that inner spirit being like a light bulb or like your mobile phone. If I don't recharge daily, that light is going to go. And that's where I go towards negative thinking. That's when fear often takes over. 2 days ago, I had a very long work day. It was just many things had to get done. And towards the end of the day, my mind started to wander. Do any of you ever have where like just randomly thoughts start to come to you that have nothing to do with that moment? You think about something you did last week, or you think about your childhood friend from 20 years ago, or you're thinking about just very like, it's like almost like these thoughts just like invade your mind with no relevant reason. And then all of a sudden, fearful thoughts start coming in. In that moment, I have to ask myself, one, what is it I really need in this moment? Because when I find myself all of a sudden developing negative thoughts that then lead to fearful thoughts, rather than allow those thoughts to grow, I will ask myself, what's really happening in this moment? What is it I need? And sometimes the answer could be very simple. I've been so busy, I forgot to eat today, or I haven't had water, or I didn't sleep properly, or even more importantly, I didn't meditate today. Those checking moments, because what happens is if I start creating negative thinking, which often is rooted in the fear of something I don't have control over or is uncertain, if I bring it into words or into actions, or I create very expressive emotions, one, it might influence those around me. Two, it may damage my relationships, where later I have to then spend time to heal those relationships. But the other piece of it is that I've now lost focus from what I needed to get accomplished. So I'm not effective or efficient anymore. So thinking back, I don't know if anyone here is an academic student right now, but I remember when I was studying in school, I was terrible at math. I enjoyed it, but wasn't very good at it. And I remember there were times that I would have fear studying for an exam because I kept thinking I'm going to fail. And I used to get very dramatic about it. Tears. I'd spent so much time focusing on the fact that I was fearful of failing that I lost so much time when I could have been studying. I would spend hours and hours panicking rather than just focusing on the task of studying. And what helped me was meditation. It taught me how to cool down. It helped me to recognize the thoughts were leading to these emotions. But it also taught me how to connect to the supreme source, who many of us call God, that I was not alone. And that I was going to pass. I needed to hear a new language in my own thoughts. Just like when you're driving, I chose to take the smooth road versus the bumpy road. Just like in my thinking, I have to choose that I'm going to pass by hearing those thoughts. I needed to hear a new conversation in my own mind. I had to choose new thoughts. I had to create new habits in my thinking. So I have a few helpful tips then any questions, and then we will close with a short reflection. So helpful tips. I'm going to share my screen. I intentionally did not create a lot of slides because I wanted to just have this conversation, but let me share a few tips to walk away with, okay? So I'll share my screen. All right. Helpful tips. The first one we talked about was actually a formula many of us use in the Brahma Kumaris called SOS. It's managing my thoughts, installing that inner traffic light. So stop, take a moment to stop the flow of thoughts, observe, get to know which thoughts are not as you would like them to be, and then steer. Gently begin to create the type of thoughts you wish to think. So choosing new thoughts, SOS. That's helpful tip 1. The second one, having regular conversations with yourself. Asking myself, when I'm starting to feel a negative thought or a negative emotion, including fear, what is my truth in this moment? What do I need in this moment? It's not what others can do for me. What is it I need from me in this moment? Rationalization. What do I have control over and not control over? Let me focus on what I do have control over. This is always a helpful tip. Keep the space you live, work, and spend time in clean. Make your bed every day. Why? A clean environment helps to create a clean mind. Let's declutter. I can change my thinking because thoughts are a choice. Let me have compassion for myself, for the self, acknowledging that I'm doing the best that I can do. Another helpful tip, spiritual practice. I would say probably the most important tip. We need to charging the inner spirit, connecting to the Supreme Source through meditation. Because fearlessness is actually about courage, love, truth, tolerance, and power. And so if you're going to walk away with anything from this session, is to remind myself that I am powerful. So I want you to say it to yourself right now. You can even unmute yourself right now and say it. I am powerful. Can I hear someone say it? I am powerful.
I am powerful. I am powerful.
Exactly. I need to hear that new conversation from me. This is how we develop fearlessness. It's a new conversation that can only be based on love, courage, compassion, truth. Any questions or comments?
So thank you so much, Sister Nalisha. I can't see any other questions, but there's one question which has propped up in my mind right now. So I am powerful and I can really invoke the law of attraction. But the very next second, I get this thought, probably I am not powerful. So how to deal with this?
We go back to SOS because yes, I can have that one thought and then the negative thought comes in because we're still changing those habits. So we have to repeat. We also need to believe what we're saying. Yes, in one moment I feel powerful, and the next moment I'm not feeling very powerful. So then ask myself, well, what is it I need? What is it that it's okay to say, I need something. It's okay to acknowledge that I'm experiencing some emotions right now that are pulling me down. You never want to suppress. However, I need to then shift that thought. This is why when we say I am powerful, I also need love. I also need a lot of compassion, but I have to be careful not to create excuses. Excuses for why I created that maybe not so powerful thought. And so and this is why a spiritual practice is very important, because if anything, it helps to build that inner power that maybe we couldn't do otherwise. Because if we just try to do it without a spiritual practice or process, it becomes temporary. Which is why meditation is so critical to be part of our day. It's like if I don't eat every day, I experience the impact of that. It's the same thing. If I don't nurture the inner spirit, the soul, I'm going to feel the impact of it in a way that pulls me away from where I would like to be, meaning feeling powerful. Does it happen overnight? No. But if I commit to this, make a promise to myself that I'm going to work on it, I will see the shift. And sometimes it's okay to ask for support. That's why we always say Raj Yoga meditation or the Brahma Kumaris is a family. We don't do this alone. It's okay to say at times, I need a little guidance or a little support. It's okay to reach out to a support system too. With the intention of wanting to grow, not with the intention of wanting to pull others into your, what is it, misery? They say misery loves company. No, we actually want to say that it's actually, we want good company. Company that will lift us. It's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I don't see anything in Sister Rehna, go ahead. Yeah, a quick one.
Yeah, it's often seen that one who is actually powerful, very courageous, and who can take care of themselves, don't need a lot of support from others. They receive a little bit none at all of love and compassion. Okay, that's quite seen many times. Many people have seen that. If you're self-sufficient, the attitude will be okay. They can take care of themselves. They don't need us. So how to keep that balance? How do we maintain a balance there?
A balance of a balance between the care for others or?
Yeah, but then even when that person is very courageous and very powerful and very, they don't need much of help. Everybody needs love and compassion, right? So, but the attitude of people, around us is, okay, they can take care of themselves, they don't need. So they, immediately start pulling, they do all the things that will make them pull down, make them feel low, all those things. So what do I need or do they need, whoever is going through that, do they need to tone down a bit of being powerful, or how do we deal with that?
Well, it's a good question. We have to remind ourselves that these, reminding myself that I'm powerful, that I'm compassionate, doesn't need to come out on a physical level. You know, I don't need to be going around saying, I'm powerful, I'm powerful. Yes, it could be joyous to say that, but it's really about what thoughts am I sharing with others? What is that spiritual vibration or that spiritual energy? Because there are going to be people that are experiencing a lot of sorrow. And I can listen, but I have to be cautious not to fall into or be pulled by their sorrow. But I also have to remember that in their moments of sorrow, they might not be ready to hear spiritual knowledge, or they may not be ready to hear how I'm feeling really good, but I can donate through my thoughts, reminding myself that everyone has to choose the direction they want their thoughts to go in. And so I have to also maintain a balance of what I'm showing externally and what I need to do through more a subtle or internal process. But, you know, it's good to be a support system for others, but I have to also be cautious that it doesn't turn into where I lose my sense of inner strength. You know, and so that's why, you know, we always talk about detachment with love, you know, where I give complete love, but I also can't control the outcome. So, all right, so I know our time is almost coming to a close. Thank you for your questions. So let us do a closing reflection.
Nalishha,
Yes.
sorry, before we go for the closing reflection,
Yes.
we'll do it. It's okay if we exceed a bit, 5-10 minutes. Is
Okay,
that okay? Okay, yeah, thanks. So I'll just request our seniors that are with us, Dr. Ashok Mehta and Sister Claudia. So both of them to propose the vote of thanks. Yeah, over to both of you. Thanks.
Om Shanti Ashok Bhai.
To unmute. Dr. Mehta, unmute. Yeah.
Hi, Nalisha Ben. Om Shanti. I saw Nalisha Ben first. She was still a student 30 years back in Connecticut at your home.
Yes.
And that was my first visit to US after I became part of the Brahma Kumaris. I think it was 91 or 92, maybe.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
went together in the car to Boston, I recollect. So beautiful. And then I met you much later in Washington in 2000, maybe 7 or so. I do not recollect exactly. Amazing. You are a professor now. You were really professorial, professor of the Godly University. You have taught us some of the finest things in spirituality today. I missed the earlier part because I was away, but I think it's amazing. I enjoyed the later half of the talk. And I think the most important, I am the most powerful. Why only powerful? I am the most powerful. I think this is it, the positive thinking. I always thought that whenever somebody I have to introduce, people who are little, questioning your wisdom in joining Brahma Kumaris, I always tell them that you may not get anything else, but just a school of positive thinking. This is all that you can do all the time, is look at a positive side of life. I think it's so beautiful. To become fearless, you have to be powerful. And that also, you just have to do a simple thing, remove your negative thinking. But that takes time, as you said very nicely. I enjoyed every bit of your talk. So beautiful. And I am very happy that you are on this program, and must thank Manoj Bhai to bring all my old friends back in my contact over a period of time. Thank you very much, Nalisha Ben. And I look forward to see you sometime in Madhuban. If you let me know when you're coming, I'll come all the way to see you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you. Thank you.
Om Shanti. Good morning from Vancouver. And then maybe we were almost in good afternoon for you and good evening for some who are in India. So it is a pleasure to hear from you. I think after we studied the other, when the Didi was talk about fear, maybe sometime comes from the unknown, like you said, unknown from our past life that we don't know. And that's why when we come to she was talking, especially when you take the plane or something. But also was nice to see when you were also talking again about this unknown part. That's the fear comes. That's why we need to know what is going on, what is happening. Like you said, for you to go to work, you need to know what is happening outside. Not by just talking about that, but at least know what is happening. And then, and also because we have to, in this life nowadays, we have to be really strong and then know that nobody can shake us that much, because nowadays a time of threatening and bullying and all those things happening everywhere. So if we don't know ourselves, then we can be pulled by that fear that somebody is going to do something against me. So then you can see how many big ones like Gandhi, today we were hearing about Gandhi, how he was not fearful. He went through so much to release India from the British. So he didn't have fear. He has his aim. So he just went through his aim. So I think in life, we need to be like that. Do not get too much touched by the fears of others and trying to make us, and we need to know about ourselves and then move forward. So life is going to be easy. Like you said, not go too much into the negativity of others and not too much into our own negativity either, because they can bring those negativity to us. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear from you. It's the first time I met you. So it was a pleasure. Then hope to meet you again.
Thank you, Claudia Van, and happy Doctors' Day. Today is a big day for doctors in the world. So lots and lots of love and good wishes to all of you.
In India, it's a Doctor's Day. I don't think across the world, because you know why it is a Doctor's Day today?
B.C. Roy.
He was a physician to Mahatma Gandhi and second chief minister of West Bengal. And this is his birthday, as well as he became avyakt on 1st of July. And you know, there's an honor in his name, Dr. B.C. Roy Award. It's the highest honor to a medical doctor. I was fortunate to have it in 1996. It's a long, long time back.
Many congratulations.
Today is Canada Day as well. So happy Canada Days to all.
Happy Canada Day also.
So thank you so much. And I'll just take a few more minutes to do a few announcements, and then I'll give it to you for the reflection. So as always, we are finishing the Fearlessness. We did a silence retreat last Sunday. We did the workshop. Now I'm sure we are powerful souls. So let's move on to the July month, all sorts of 2 different values now. So we finished with the Shiv Shaktis. Now we are with the Pandavas in the next value. So it's commitment, and episode 69. We know what 69 holds significance for us at Brahma Kumaris. We had a few changes. So we have brothers with us now. And we are so fortunate, just at one request, and they are there, both Brother Eric's, and both are highly committed souls in the Brahma Kumaris roles they play. Brother Eric Lareste is the National Coordinator of Canada, and Brother Eric Larson is the Director of Brahma Kumaris in New York, USA. I'm sure Nalisha sister knows him very well. Even I know him, because having met him, beautiful souls. And the way they, again, we know Brother Eric of Canada very well, but they also gel well on a very different level when they speak to seniors as well. So I'm sure we'll have a blast of conversation with them on the next Saturday. Just one change is the time is just to suit both of them, because both of them have many commitments. Brother Eric of Canada is in Peace Village. Brother Eric himself is doing many other online programs of USA. So it will be half-hour delayed. So just keep a note of that. So 8:30 p.m. for India and 11 a.m. for East Coast, and therefore it will be 8 a.m. for the West Coast. So again, another brother for the workshop, not new for us. Next Saturday after that, 15 July, he'll be doing the workshop. Brother Yogesh Sharda, as always, experiential exercises followed by his talk. And this is our elegant calendar. We have the next value coming up after commitment is dedication. So we'll be doing the announcements later and the silence retreat as well later. For people to just browse at the workshops and the episodes, these are the links which you can find all the videos on that. They are freely available. Our websites and emails are mentioned here. I'll just stop sharing the screen now. And I think we always have a request, Sister Nalishha, that they want to have a photograph with the guest speaker. So I would request Sister Anu to take a photograph quickly. If all of you all can switch on your videos, it would be great.
Yeah, we don't want to miss it, and to have this sweet memory moment with Sister Nalisha. So everybody switch on your video, whoever wants to be in the
And
video.
it's Happy Doctors Day to all the spiritual doctors. We are double doctors, but you're at least single doctors. So Happy Doctors Day to all of you as well. I hope it's done.
Yeah, people are so slow. Yes, I got it. Thank you everyone.
Thanks.
Nalisha.
So we can proceed with your reflection and meditation. Thanks.
Om Shanti. Let's take a moment now to become completely still. Stepping away from the roles and responsibilities of your day. Stepping inwards into a space that's quieter, peaceful. Allowing that feeling of peace to radiate within you. Ask yourself right now, what am I feeling? Is there any worry? Is there any fear? Do I need comfort in this moment? If you were looking after a child with those same thoughts, would you just neglect the child? Or would you respond with wisdom, with love, with words of comfort? Connecting to that deep place of love. What could you say to yourself right now to comfort that part of you that feels pain, or fear. You are filled with a deep sense of wisdom. A wisdom that takes birth from silence and peace. Perhaps the fear that you're experiencing just needs pure energy of love. But first, let me pay attention to what the self needs. And then next, let me respond with love, compassion, and wisdom. There are moments that we may feel fragile. And let me offer myself strength and power. We don't need to pretend it doesn't exist. The best we can do is respond with love. Just like we would respond to anyone around us who is experiencing fear or sorrow or pain. Let me offer that same love to myself. Reminding myself that I am a being of peace. I am a being of wisdom. I am a being of love. Let me nurture and offer myself pure thoughts that bring hope, strength, and power to the soul. Om Shanti.
So thank you once again so much for your participation and for your wisdom. Thanks a lot.
It was beautiful sharing. So thank you everyone for being here too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a beautiful opportunity to be with all of you. I look forward to seeing you again. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.